The NFL draft is just a couple days away, and now that we are fully first week in on NFL free agency, I figured it was time to go through a very special guest on a first-time guest basis, and then as well as our underrated prospects for the 2026 NFL draft. BIB Draft HQ here on BIB. Let's go. Burgundy Ballers, welcome back to BIB Draft HQ here on the Ball and Burgundy podcast, your one-stop shop for all things NFL draft content that's specifically related to our beautiful Washington Commanders. And I said a very special guest because I could not do this alone. I could not just be yapping here for another 40 minutes talking about prospects that I love and are underrated. So I had to bring in a guest, my man, NFL Draft Dome, a.k.a. Mr. Clint Goss himself. Clint, what's happening?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about some guys just in general and, relating to y'all's Commanders.
Yeah, I'm excited. And honestly, you being a Falcons fan, it's a very interesting time for your NFC South birds. So I'm curious some of the names you put on your list. I wonder if you're looking towards the draft of like, look, my Falcons need to get better. These are some guys I think could do it in later rounds. So I'm curious what you're thinking for your Falcons as well, because very interesting free agency for you guys. I've paid a little attention. I'm like, all right, I need to see where this is going for Stefanski and company.
Yeah, so, I think new GM Ian Cunningham has inadvertently made his opinion known on his predecessor's work as far as 23 to 53 on the roster. The motto of this free agency really could just be depth, and flipping it over, trying to get younger as one of the older rosters in the league. Made a cap move today, restructuring corner AJ Terrell. So there's even more intention for him to do even more players for us to have brought in. It seems like 10 or 11. Like I said, that bottom 30 of the roster, it really feels like he is flipping it over on its head.
Yeah, it's interesting. I paid attention. Then earlier today for my community, brought back Jeremy McNichols, so that could take some effect, probably not onto the draft. But before we get into any of that, guys, don't forget like and share on BIB. Road to 1,100 subscribers. We're at 1,010 subscribers. We have finally hit that 1,000-yard mark. So now we're just trying to grow this thing, get this thing rolling. And then if you have not checked out at NFL Draft Dome, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the whole nine, all of Clint's links down in the description. Go give him a like, go give him a follow, go give him a subscribe. He's doing fantastic work, and he'll be making more rounds on plenty of other podcasts this offseason, as well as a part of Draft Professor's Mock Draft 2026. So y'all stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a fantastic time as a viewer and I'm sure as a participant. So let's get this thing kicked off. I'm going to start with your list, Clint, because it is more interesting, because some names I've heard of, some of them I'm like, I got to do more homework on. So pulling that up, going to start at the top, and we can work our way from there. But you have quarterback out of Rutgers, I'm going to butcher this name. So Ethan Kalamanis. I've heard inklings of him, especially with him being a top 30 visit for my Commanders. But why is he on your list currently as your most underrated quarterback?
Yeah, the best I would pronounce it is Kalamanis, former Minnesota quarterback, transfer over to Rutgers. Very much a rhythm passer, but has plenty, if not a surplus of arm strength to go with it. Have been interested to see he's got a 30 visit with Washington. Off the top of my head, I think it might have been Green Bay. I'd have to fact check myself. But he's out there as far as getting some 30 visits. Good pedigree to him as well. Former Illinois Gatorade Player of the Year as a recruit. Dad was a wrestler at Seton Hall. Brother has followed him as a receiver at Minnesota and Rutgers. Athletic family. 42 starts. He's somebody that you kind of know what you're getting as far as a good backup quarterback you could get legitimate snaps out of. In y'all's case, obviously, you're not looking at him to come in here and be the boss man. You want him to come in behind Jaden Daniels as somebody that can be competent at the position, really experienced. Really good as far as this pre and post snap with coverages, and you tie that into the experience as well. Plenty of size in that 6'3", 212 range of him. I just think he's somebody that doesn't have a lot of faults in his game, and felt good about that with him. in general, but also projecting to y'all. And he's really somebody, if you look at the consensus board, as far as general draft media, really hasn't been getting any noise. It's picked up a little bit with some of these 30 visits, like I mentioned, and I'm glad to see it. But for us to look at these guys that are clear-cut backups, that's their intention and their future career here in the league, he's got a little more arm strength than some of them to be a rhythm passer, to have that experience, to bring him somewhere like Washington. I like Calic Manis and somebody I do very much have a draftable grade on, for him to be a consensus priority undrafted free agent.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, we have Jay and Daniel, so I'm not really doing a whole lot of scouting. And, in the quarterback room, obviously there's Mendoza, Simpson, Nuss. And then after that, it's like, all right, so I really got to look at the next, 5 quarterbacks for Washington. But I heard you did a top 30 visit. I'm thinking that it feels to me more due diligence. I don't know if Blau and company really, really love Sam Hartman as their 3, brought back Mariota, still got Jaden. And look, Sam Hartman is the NFC Herbert in terms of the hair flow and the handsomeness. I call him L'Oreal. If Justin Herbert has head and shoulders, we got our L'Oreal spokesperson. So I would not be mad if we took a UDFA on Calic Manis. I think at 6'3", you said 220. That is a good size, for a good quarterback, good arm strength, and
definitely a superior arm strength to Hartman. That's sure. Of everything, that's the looking to upgrade spot, with just as much intellect and all the experience he has as well, which Hartman did too as a prospect. But the jump is the arm strength. It would look like a fastball 100%. Versus a changeup.
100%. I was thinking the same thing. Like, arm strength is a big thing, especially with some of the receivers we have and could get in the market. But I think, like, you brought him up on your board, and I'm thinking, well, the Falcons now have Michael Penix and Tua, 2 smaller framed, left arm, injury-prone quarterbacks, unfortunately. I think if you took any quarterback, whether it's a UDFA or a late-round prospect for your Falcons, I don't think it's actually as bad as some people think. Because if you're thinking, oh, Tua and Penix are going to be available for all 17 games, I'm going, you've not been paying attention to this league long enough. And I think having a young third to distribute to Bijan, Pitts, and Drake London, it's not a bad idea either for Cunningham and Stefanski to go, hey, look, we at least need a number 3 on the roster. Plenty of starts, good size, good arm strength. There could be a lot worse.
It is a funny reminder, though, while we have former North Dakota State quarterback Easton Stick rostered as far as a 3 spot, the practice squad quarterback is Kyle Trask. Most people don't realize that they got him off of that Bucks regime. Anybody can remember those Florida Gator days with Kyle Pitts. So as far as a 3 or a 4, I think they're pretty sound in their approach. And it's kind of like this, and this isn't me being a smart aleck. If they look up and Penix is hurt and Tua's hurt, you're screwed. It's kind of like season's toasto. It's gone. No, Tua was their move. It was kind of like I best described it as, I think the math here is 1 + 1 = 1 between the two of them. They're not both going to stay healthy the whole year. Try and get through with them and then get your answer as far as Penix going into 2027, because yes, this is a make or break year for him, particularly in terms of his health, some of his touch, some of his consistent accuracy. If that step isn't made this year, they'll be ready to make a move.
100%. 100%. I found it interesting that he went to Atlanta, and I was like, of all the places for Tua to end up, I wasn't expecting, the place with an injury-prone, smaller-framed left-arm quarterback. But, this is maybe a reason why I'm not a GM, because I was not looking for those things, especially here in Washington. But you got them on cheap, so there are many, many worse things. You put in Adam Randall as your top underrated running back. Funny enough, I just did a mock draft for the Burgundy Breakdown. It's my collaborative show with Reed Easy and one guy talking sports. And I took Randall at 223 for our Commanders because he's got a really good size, good strength. And it was a very, very down year for Clemson as overall. Like, I'm lower on TJ Parker. I'm lower on those guys, but 168 carries, 814 yards, 10 touchdowns, average 4.8 yards a carry this season, 6'2", 230. his first true year as a starter could have gone way worse. And I would agree with you on this aspect. I haven't heard much his name in the media about in this running back draft class.
Yeah, funny enough, so in the last few days since I sent you some of these names for the episode, it feels like draft media and people on Twitter are starting to catch on a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a ton, but it's definitely going north with Randall. As you mentioned, 6'2", 232. I can tell you haven't interviewed him at the Senior Bowl, and he and I even joked about it. I can't believe he's only 232. I mean, he is built solid as a rock. He assured me that's the biggest he'll ever get at the position. So well built, 3-year receiver at Clemson. Good numbers there. I mean, 10+ yards per catch, about 800 yards worth of receiving in those 3 years, made the transition to running back, 1,000+ scrimmage yards this year, still sprinkling in a couple hundred receiving yards out of the backfield. For him to be so new to the position, he's really not that raw in terms of his pass blocking, in terms of his available route tree, obviously with the background coming out of the backfield. He's got incredible burst for the size. I look at my Falcons, for example, just had Tyler Algier leave town to go to free agency as the running back 2 behind Bijan. That thumper, real red zone threat, who doesn't have to have a ton of volume as far as carries. You can talk about a dream response for he to be there. You look at your Commanders having just parted with Chris Rodriguez Jr., heading out to the Jags. That's another one. I mean, 2 very applicable teams as far as our fandoms here, talking about Randall. The projection on him is just going to be so great for a team that has that expectation for him to come in as a 2 and can be brought along as he does get more, nurtured as far as his pass blocking and things of the sort. But, athletically, the traits, this being such the most passing NFL we've seen thus far in the league's history where we are modernly in these offenses. I'll tell you, if you were to look at this list you've got pulled up of the 10 I gave you, and you told me to pick my draft crush of sorts, in past few years, I've had guys like Arnold Ebiketie, Christian Gonzalez, Brian Branch, a lot of second rounders, and Randall would be the lowest in terms of that. He's not going to go in the second round. But this very well could end up being my guy I point at the end of the draft cycle, heading into the draft, and be like, this kid's going to be a player, man. I mean, I'm – there's no one out there higher on Randall than I am. I really like him a lot. If I had to pick one person from this list that I think's the most underrated, I'd say Randall.
I like that. When we get to mileage, you're gonna go, what is he underrated? I've also been on a lot of guys' radar since like mid-December when I started BIB Draft HQ here, because I'm like, all right, my season's over by like week 9. I gotta get started, some of these scoutings now. That's kind of my viewpoint. But I did like Randall. You sent it to me, and I was like, I've heard the name. I got to do some more research. I did some of the research. I'm like, all right, yep, I got more work to do. I like it. One name I couldn't have spelled, couldn't have pronounced, couldn't have thought of in a year and a half if I tried. Barika Kemdu, the running back out of North Dakota State. I like Bryce Lance, the receiver, had paid no attention to the running back. And as I'm pulling up his stats just for the meantime, this year alone, 191 carries, 1,005 yards, 20 touchdowns, plus another 250 through the air, and another touchdown on the ground through the air. Like, I mean, you want to talk about a name? If take it away, because I've got nothing on this man, and I definitely should by now. But I'm also doing a lot more defense than I am offense this year.
No, but I mean, going off of just your mention of you've got a little catching up to do there. Helk Pinu is in the 500s as far as the consensus right now. It's wild. When you look at the production, like you mentioned, over 1,000 rushing yards this year, 20 touchdowns on the ground. Kick it over to his receiving ability, 12.4 yards per catch in a high-powered offense with Cole Payton, who we'll see be one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks drafted. Bryce Lance, Great program in North Dakota State. The thing that's going to sell you on him, I mean, very well built, cut up kid at 5'10", 217. It's the burst, man. I mean, you look at his short area burst. He's one of those one step top speed. There's no build up speed to this guy. For a team that's late three, and going off a consensus, if he were to get in a priority free agent, there's insane upside here to get some mileage out of the guy. Have heard nothing but good things out of the program on Pinu. Think some of his best football can be ahead of him as well. I could not be higher on that running back tandem that I have listed right there. And there's the attention from the league that we've seen. Like we talked about Cal McManus's 30 visit with you all.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Pinu, was not invited to the combine, did not go to the Senior Bowl or the Shrine, but was at the American Bowl, new bowl this year, really did pull some nice talent. I was impressed with the talent pool they had for a first-year game. Met with half the teams in the league. Between 15 and 16 teams met with Pinu. So there is interest there. To what degree, do they look at him as a late day three? Do they look at him as a priority free agent that can get mileage out of? That's to be determined. But no, I mean, the eyes are getting there. I like this guy a lot, man. I'm telling you. But the selling point of it all, if you were to say the selling point of Randall, you would say his receiving background. If you said the selling point of Pinu, it'd be that quick area burst that's going to translate from any level to the league.
Hey, you're selling me now. All I'm hearing are good things. You're selling me now. If I need a UDFA, you're selling me correctly. I'm liking this already. But yeah, once you get past the first, I mean, I'll go 300 prospects. It starts to get all right, how many more running backs I got? How many more corners I got? How many more edge rushers I got? Unfortunately, Pinu does fall into that, so I do have more work to do. But the fact that he met with, like you said, half the teams at the All-American Bowl, that is good news for him, and I am glad that is happening because it's going to be last year was an interesting draft, but you could kind of write it out as you went along. After Mendoza, really, this draft is just going to get funky because Jets could go Reese, Styles, Downs, Bailey. It's there's not a consensus number two at the current moment because everyone's well, the Jets need a lot, the Cardinals need a lot, the Titans need a lot, the Giants need a lot. So,
well, in the theme of us being here in March Madness time, a good parallel for it is it's kind of like when you fill out a bracket and that one big upset happens early on and it just shoots the whole thing. There's potential for that this year in a draft that doesn't have as much top end, surefire, locked in picks in the top half of the first round. And I think even beyond that in the day 2 and day 3, you're going to see teams more than ever comfortable with going against consensus and taking their guy. Even if somebody take Randall, for example, was viewed as maybe 30 picks sooner than you would have expected, teams aren't going to get cute. They're going to take football players. They're going to take players they're comfortable with. They're going to address needs. I don't see this being a super creative draft where people try and get cute. People are going to have their little list, say that this was your little list going into it, and they're going to strike. And in a way, that's going to be a different flavor for us that follow it or cover it year over year. So it's going to be unique in that aspect.
I would agree. One name I did recognize as City Senate, Matthew Hebner, the 4-year player out of SMU, played 1 year at Michigan, transferred to SMU, and has been there the past 2 years at Michigan, 2022, 2023, and then 2 years at SMU, 2024, 2025. This was his biggest year, 31 receptions, 436 yards, 4 touchdowns, had 1 rushing yard on the year. So he kind of I think he had an injury or a redshirt year in 2023 in Michigan. But a name that in the back half of the draft I've looked at before, 6'5", 252, here out of Virginia, but by way of SMU. I've seen a couple little mocks have him really, really late in the draft. I wouldn't be particularly mad. But what makes Hibner put on your list besides just kind of the media coverage?
I think for one thing, it's some of that completeness to you get into that realm of the draft at tight end. You start hearing this guy's a little thin. He's not really that great a blocker. Or on the opposite of that, oh, this guy's a blocker, but there's not really any receiving upside. He's
Yep.
small, things of the like. Look, 6'4", 252. He's got plenty of size. He's got a ton of strength. I mean, he was 5th in the entire combine in terms of bench reps at 28. That's fantastic at that position and at that size. 32 and 3/8 inch arms, got plenty there blocking at the position. And he'll block his ass off, man. I mean, this kid is strong, very technical blocker. But the speed component is there too. I mean, ran a 4.57 in Indianapolis. Just an incredible athlete, like the burst. What a tandem that SMU had at the tight end spot between he and R.J. Maryland. Maryland runs a 4.52, a little more of that hybrid tight end with a lot of pedigree. His dad was the #1 overall pick 2 decades ago to the Cowboys. So much athleticism in that room coming out of that program. But Hibner just was, again, and if you were to just watch the combine, like never watched any tape of the guy, just saw his name for the first time there, you saw him on the sled, getting his hands inside and driving off the ball, using that upper body strength he has, along with the receiving upside and the production you mentioned. He's just somebody to me for a team that waits into, say, late day 3, that wants a complete tight end to come in at that 2. Because I think this tight end class is, while there's not a lot of tight end 1 guys, it is littered with tight end 2s and tight end 3s. If that's what you're looking for, you can strike here. I mean, mention my Falcons, for example. You got Kyle Pitts. Pitts is no blocker, man. He's a motion tight end. So much of his game really mirrors a receiver who can go get 1,000 yards worth of production. But if you are to look and say, we're going to move on from a Charlie Warner as our inline blocker, they brought in Austin Hooper on a cheap 1-year deal, but we want somebody who can more long haul with a young Pitts being only 25 years old, but still offer, unlike more so with Warner, we can upgrade to having that ability to have some receiving upside and that athleticism. He stands out to me in that group as the value lines up with being able to fill multiple roles. And worst case scenario, lean back on the fact that he's just strong as a bull and productive as an inline blocker.
Hey, all I hear is a nice blocking tight end 2. Unfortunately, my Commanders have enough of a tight end 2 that blocks between Sinnott and Bates. But for your Falcons, I do agree. I think that would be a good match with Pitts. I'm a Gators fan. That man was like 80 for 80 in the red zone. He gets to Atlanta, has 15 career touchdowns in 4 years.
I'm a Georgia guy. That's fun.
Oh, it's even better. That's even better. But it's insane that the #4 overall draft pick has as many touchdowns as Jonathan Taylor had in 1 year.
Pitts had a real breakout look last year when he needed it in a contract year.
Yeah.
Really came back year 2 off of that knee injury. Want to see him have the luxury of having some upgraded quarterback play this year. Right now, brought in Jahan Dotson for a receiver 2, receiver 3 spot. Outside of Drake London, you got to imagine that Pitts is the #2 target there. Stepped up for his big this year, but want to see his big thing now is going to be, had the Pro Bowl rookie year, had this big breakout year last year. He's got to stack one after the other.
I would agree. Moving over to the offensive line, this is where I started noticing more names that I've recognized doing a bunch of mock drafts and doing some prospect scouting. Is Caden Barnett, guard out of Wyoming. I mean, you want to talk about just a big boy out of the Midwest. I'm pulling him up right now. 6'5", 320 is what PFF has. I couldn't find his other stats. I'm gonna go off of that. But I mean, led up 1 sack this year for the Cowboys. More of a run block than a pass blocking guard. Last year was a down year for him. But I mean, if you want him on the right side of your O-line, whether it's he played a lot of guard this year, but the past 2 years have played a lot of tackles. So I think they're gonna move him more into a guard in the league. That's a name I've heard inklings of, but it's more or less me doing a bunch of prospect looks at. So Caden Barnett, guard, Wyoming. Why are you liking him for this list?
As you mentioned, a lot of a tackle background out of that Wyoming program. He'll be projected to a kick inside, just his power profile. That's the strength of his game. particularly for some teams hunting some bully ball. Definitely has a mean streak as well. There's no conversation about we got to teach this guy to be physical. At the second level in particular, he's seeking out somebody to bury in the dirt. Tested very well athletically, man. I mean, his pro day, he was a 95th percentile athlete at a guard spot. 31-inch vertical showed that explosion getting to the second level I talked about in his lower body. Ran a 5.03. I mean, almost got under 5-second 40 with that much weight on him. He's a power lifter out of that program. And the short line speed matched. The 20-yard split, 2.89. That's over 95th percentile. Just across the board, a lot to work with.
Yep.
You look at some teams, like I said, mentioned like maybe like a Ravens who are looking for somebody on an interior to kind of fit a cultural brand of violence. Really like Barnett, and the fact that with his tackle experience, you get in a serious kind of bind. He could do it, and you could get away with it for a little bit, even though his future is at guard. To come in rotationally and continue developing for day 3 to be somewhere you're really hunting traits and you're hunting somebody that can be a very good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. I just think when you look across all of that Barnett checks the boxes for somebody who is looking. Doesn't apply as much to my Falcons necessarily, but there's a team out there that's got that kind of niche need to add him to an interior. And he's just so fun to watch. Like I said, anybody that likes that old school football, put on eye black, put somebody in the dirt, and a guy that just looks like he drinks a lot of cold beer on the weekends. Barnett definitely falls in there. He's a favorite for sure.
Hey, you were saying that. You said Baltimore. I'm thinking Raiders. They just need help across the board. And you said
absolutely,
I like gold beer. I was like, Richie Incognito.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you've got the idea.
Hey, I mean, Las Vegas needs all the help they can get. So if they grab him, I'm thinking I like that a lot because look, they overpaid for Linderbaum, and most teams would have. But I would have moved JPJ back to center where he should have been all this time. I don't like him at guard, but I would trade a 6 for CPC or for JPJ if I could.
I think that Jared Wilson out of New England is who gets all the media pub as far as a traditional center who's had to play a guard spot for a team and now is anticipated getting kicked back in. JPJ deserved a little bit more of that discussion heading into free agency.
Yeah, I love JPJ coming out of the draft too, because I think if we couldn't get Biotish at the time, I would have taken him in Washington and would have been fantastic. But I'm not a GM. I'm still going to be GM. That's besides the point. One name that I was on, speaking of centers, actually, one name that was on my list, but I took him off because we're already going to talk about him starting with you. It's Matt Glubin, center out of Michigan State. I was doing some work on him earlier in the week, and I'm enjoying him. 6'4", 310. Out of Michigan State, led 2 sacks this year. I mean, you want someone who played great pretty much throughout the whole year, but isn't projected until late day 3, possible UDFA if the way some of these boards are going to fall. I'd take him in a heartbeat, get him sitting behind Alec Gritty if we can't get someone in the first 2 days. I don't know why he's not getting more attention, and I've actually put, spotlight on him a little bit.
If I had to pick one guy on this list, and they're not all projected UDFAs or late day 3s, they're not all projected in that range, but of the ones that are, I had to pick the one that makes no damn sense to me. It's Golban. Wake Forest transfer, played at Michigan State this season. The versatility. I mean, 11 starts at left guard, 10 at right guard. He's had some snaps at right tackle, not starts, but emergency snaps at right tackle. And 12 starts at center. The production to show, like you said, he only allowed 5 pressures this season at that spot. 6'4", 312. He is strong. He is composed. No panic in his game. But his selling point, we talked about the selling point of a Hibner. We talked about the selling point of the running backs. The selling point for Golban is just the versatility, the durability. I mean, you're a team, top of my head, you look at Jacksonville, who's really, have got their answers at tackle, have their answer, a really good swing tackle in Walker Little, but they're looking more at that interior in this winning window they've opened for themselves with Trevor Lawrence leading the way. You talk about could get some mileage out of Golden. Let's say, I say worst case scenario, let's say he's not even a starter when he comes in. You're going to look up by week 5 in one of those 3 spots. Somebody's going to be banged up and need some relief. You throw him in there, he's ready to roll. Has shown you he can play in the South and can play up north as far as conditions. I mean, that's digging really deep as far as adding to a profile, but it's the truth.
It is.
To go from the Carolinas to playing up in Michigan, this one blows me. Like I said, this one blows me away. This center class, when you look at center 1 to about center 7 or 8, there's going to be so much variance between team draft boards, media draft boards, casual consumers, as far as you could have the center 1 for somebody be the center 6 for somebody, and neither one of them because there's that much talent as far as straight up centers, versatilities that can play at guard spots, experience, athletic ability, and guys that can hit the ground running. There are multiple NFL potential starter centers in this class. That is a very underrated spot. And if I had to pick a position group that I am the most excited to see where the league, and I know it only takes one team to pick each individual guy, but as far as just the stack of the gap between how far apart they go and who prefers who, it'd be the center group. But even having said all that, it makes no sense to me not having Goldman in that 7 to 8 group that I mentioned. You can hear me talk about the guy. I mean, he's a football player.
It's fantastic. Like, I had this conversation because I took Jake Slaughter at 71 for my Commanders on last night's mock. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Florida boy. It's because I think he is the second best center in this class. I'd say behind Sam Hecht. And I would have Logan Jones as my 3. Like, I'm not as high on Connor Lew, the center out of Auburn. Not as high on him, but I'm higher on Golden, Hecht, Slaughter, Jones, Coogan to a degree. Like you said, someone's 6 is someone's 2. Someone's 2 is really someone else's 5. It's a perfect example. So I would agree. I don't know why Goldman's not getting as much attention, but also when as deep as, honestly, between the tackles and the center, it's a deep O-line draft for a lot of teams. I wouldn't be surprised if someone said, hey, look, we're going to grab, one of the top 3 centers in the top 2 rounds. Who else could use some depth? Well, let's grab someone in round 7. Oh, Goldman's right there. Might as well try it out.
Agreed.
So, Nolan, see, I've heard this pronunciation 2 different times. It's the same way like Vega Yawane. So I'm just going to say it, and I'm probably going to be wrong. Nolan Rucci, the tackle out of Penn State, more of a right tackle, has played some snaps at left tackle this past year, but 6'8", 305 pounds. You want to talk about someone, as Big E said, big meaty men slapping meat. It's number 72 for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Had a rough start to start the year, but kind of finished a little stronger in the year. He's been back and forth on my tackle boards, whether or not he should be higher or lower. I've kind of gone more of like a mid-day 3, maybe very, very late day 2, around the, maybe start around the 90s. But if someone had like 85 grabs, and I'm going, all right, it's not bad. It's not a bad steal, actually.
I think Rucci is somebody, particularly if you consulted gurus of the offensive line, and specifically I'll mention Duke Manyweather. Duke is probably the creme de la creme as far as private offensive line coaches for NFL clients. This is who he coins as his sleeper in the class as well. Yes, he's 6'8", 305, 310, but he has bend. He can get down. He's got hip flexion. He's not some stiff, and his pedigree is as good as you're going to find as anybody in this class. Just projecting his body and his athleticism translating to the league. His dad was all decade in the 90s for the Patriots at guard. I mean, anyone that makes it to the to the NFL has made it to the NFL, but it's not just he made it to the NFL. He was an all-decade caliber player for a franchise like the Patriots. His mom was All-American at Penn State in women's hockey. Grandfather even made it to the NFL, played for Syracuse and the Colts. Got a brother that's played with The Dolphins, he's played with. Came out of Wisconsin. He was the one. He played at Wisconsin, then the Dolphins, and now he is still rostered with the 49ers. So all about it, man. I mean, he was made for this kind of stuff. 18 starts in the last 2 seasons in that Penn State program that I think as a whole, they are some of the best coached prospects entering the draft. But yeah, I mean, just his dip to match pass rushers at that size profile, all that together, having mentioned it already, kind of at that price point that you mentioned for a team that didn't go day 1, didn't go day 2. And even if, let's say, he did sneak into late day 2, somebody that waited till the 3rd round and had to go for some other needs higher, there's a lot of mileage to be had on Rucci, somebody that knows everything about the NFL, everything about collegiate athletics at a high level, hit the ground running, get a lot of production out of them.
I think someone who just made a really, really big trade but needs the O-line help regardless he's going to start or not. KC. They had like 3 third-round picks. I think the latest one is around the Dolphins have pick 90. KC, I'd say Miami. Both of them could use O-line help. Both of them have multiple picks within the top 100. Wouldn't hate it for either one of them. He doesn't have to start immediately. But for like the Dolphins who are in a rebuild, I mean, he would be better than Sabaneja at guard. He'd be better than was it Austin Jackson? They're one of their tackles if he's not long gone by now. Like there are worse tackles than a rookie right who is 6'8" and will move bodies.
Absolutely, and whose dad could probably be an NFL offensive line coach.
Yep, I agree. Going to the defense, you threw 10 names at me, and I knew about half of them. So Julian Neal, corner out of Arkansas, 6'2", around that 215, 220 mark, had a decent year for the Razorbacks, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 82.5 pass rating. Is more of a run defense corner, but obviously can play zone and play man. Strictly corner, like a few snaps in the box, but he's going to be more of that corner spot. He was higher in my initial process on corners, but I've kind of enjoyed some other guys, and he'll be on my honorable mentions list. He's kind of taken a step back to Coys, your Delanes, but even some of the mid-round guys, your Chris Johnsons, your Trayton Stoops, guys like that who had good combines, good Senior Bowls, good Shrine Bowls. I'm shocked Neal's taken the bigger step back compared to some of the other guys.
Neal is a different type of corner than a lot of guys in that range. And the fact, take a team like the Packers, for example, very, very, very strict thresholds as far as size for their corners. That's not the team drafting a 5'11", 185-pounder. They want more along Neal's lines, 6'2", 203, 205, got nearly 33-inch arms. 9.5-inch hands. Oh yeah. I mean, he has really a build and a worst case scenario to him of this dude could play safety as well.
Yeah.
In the league, plays really well with the play in front of him too. Got the length, goes and runs a 4.5 in Indianapolis, which was a great number for his tape and the size profile. That was everything I was hoping for. Not somebody that was going to crack a 4.5, but to get right at that 4.5 spot, I bet if you were sitting here talking with him, he'd tell you that's as good as I could have run in Indianapolis as far as the value. But lower body explosiveness, man. I mean, a 40-inch vertical and 11.2 broad, that was the best of the corner group in Indianapolis. Very good athlete. I always mention on shows such as this, the best matchup at the Senior Bowl between running backs and linebackers, between tight end, between offensive lineman and defensive lineman, any of it was one-on-ones, Georgia State receiver Ted Hurst versus Julian Neal. Those guys were throwing blows at each other, very similar size, a little bit taller, hair heavier on Hurst, but more of a stockier build on Neal. Those guys were going at it all week. I enjoyed that one as much as any. And that was a testament to his ability to hang either off or in press against some of those larger X-built receivers. I like his versatility. Like I said, if you looked up and were like, man, we got to play this guy more in the back end. He can do it. Tackling ability, Fresno State transfer, has played on the West Coast, has come here and played in the South. Got a brother that played collegiate basketball, a lot of athleticism. Interviewed Neil at the Senior Bowl. Very well-spoken guy, very generous in the interview. Came away very impressed. I think in particular, if you looked at that subsect of teams that have already got a 1, maybe need a corner 2, need a corner 3, want to not any more than say a 3rd round pick off the top of head. He's a great fit there. I already mentioned the Packers. You could mention my Falcons. You've already got an AJ Terrell as a 1. Got some guys like a Mike Hughes, and looking for a second-year step out of a Kobe Bryant. Throw him into a rotation for a room that could use a little size, a different profile, with some more off-zone corners that are sub 195. Neil is a fun one for me. He's somebody I've gotten interested to. But I hear all your comments on him as well. But that's part of what is so fun about this corner group. Kind of like we said, to a lesser degree about the corners, but the variance of who's somebody's 3rd and their 5th and their 7th and size thresholds and team needs and who's already in the building. He's going to be really interesting to me to see who ultimately does pull the trigger on him. Like I said, I know I've mentioned the Packers a few times, like Packers 3rd round would be like where I'd throw out a name right there for somebody like you.
Yeah, Packers, you were talking, I was thinking maybe New England, pair him up with Gonzo. You could do the Bills because they always need, cornerback help galore. Like they can never get a solid corner to save their life. So, I mean, all of them have 3rd round picks. All of them need solid 2s. KC just needs cornerback help as well, so they could double dip and get Neil. It's going to be a few teams I think they're going to be in the cornerback market. I think both of our teams included. But now going to linebacker. Now I've paid attention to Jack Kelly a little bit out of BYU, which is a down year for the Cougars, but it is what it is. It's football. But 6'2", 242 had my computer wants to run slow. Why? 15 missed tackles with 41 total. Really good. Can do some more pass rush. Then you're going to be you're not going to put him in coverage, but if you're going to play him around the D line, going to put him in the box. Not hating it. It's just kind of an up and down year for the Cougars as a whole. So trying not to hold that against him, but I know some teams and some analysts are going to be like, well, it was a down year for him, so we're going to make a down year for all BYU prospects.
Kelly is somebody, speaking on my Falcons, I really have circled as far as like that Caden Ellis role of a linebacker with a lot of speed and that blitz backer upside. 15 sacks and 23 and a half tackles for loss the last 2 seasons. Ridiculous production there and over his total 35-plus starts with that size profile. Liked what I saw out of him at the Senior Bowl and one-on-ones and just at the second level in particular. First team All-Big Sky coming out of Weber State. First team All-Big 12 here with BYU. 31 and an 1/8-inch arms. I don't think he's by any means a coverage demon. Like I said, I think he's more along of that profile of a Caden Ellis playing in the front 7, rushing the quarterback. But his production and his growth going from a smaller program to BYU, just want to see him have an opportunity to take another step like that with reasonable expectations. If you look at where he is on consensus and projected, it's like, look, you're sitting there in the 6th, 7th round, and you need a linebacker who's got legitimate size, legitimate speed, that has the production galore as a 97th percentile athlete in terms of his testing. I mean, Witten had a phenomenal week in Indianapolis. I think he's had a good pre-draft and in a very good linebacker class, particularly in the day 2 and day 3 depth. He does have that selling card, like I said, of a team that needs a little juice from a pass rush standpoint. Maybe not getting it enough at their edge spots, maybe not enough between the tackles with their big men. You put him on a team with somebody that maybe is a little more of a run stuffer on the interior, but needs a little extra juice, a couple sacks worth of production at the second level. And like I said, I've mentioned my Falcons. That's just a really good team example for it. Kelly stands out in those spots enough that I'd be excited about him at that price point, day 3.
Yeah, I was thinking day 3, probably starting around the 5th. I'd say, yeah, your Falcons. I think the Bucks could be on the market. I think probably the Cowboys could use some help in that department. Philly, because they lost to Kobe Dean. Honestly, everyone in the NFC East outside of my Commanders could probably use Kelly's services, and they would be A-okay for him.
Hear what you just said, though. It's like we just rattled off 5, 6, 7 teams for him. And when you look at his consensus grade, it's like somebody's going to be sitting there and see the need, see the athlete. Like I said, 97th percentile athlete, that kind of niche role as a blitz backer, the production. Someone's going to take a swing. He's not going as late as consensus has him, even as a good linebacker class.
I would agree. And honestly, I'll agree to that same point with Jay Sean Barham, the edge / O linebacker, depending on how some teams are going to play their defenses out of Michigan. 3 sacks on the year. It is what it is. 9 quarterback hits, 9 hurries. His best year, it kind of is what it is, but also Michigan, again, it was a weird year for them and a horrible offseason for them. So it is what it is. It's been a name that's kind of been floating around Commanders land on, around that 147 mark. Do you take the chance on sit behind now Odafe Owe, now Charles Nwanu, now behind Dorrance Armstrong? But I mean, if you're going to play him outside the tackle, the past few years he's played more off the ball. He might be the same type of guy of like, look, we're going to test a few things, move you at edge, move you at outside linebacker if you're playing a 3-4. Let's see where we're going to maneuver you. I have a really, 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 really late 3rd to a mid 5, depending on the team needs. Like if someone's saying they're pick 100 and they took him over, Florida's Gubbs, or they took him over Namde Tucker, who I'll get into later, wouldn't hate it, but he seems he's going to need a little bit more refinement compared to some of these other edge rushers, which it's a massive edge rush depth prospect class.
Yeah, when you look at the full profile of Barham, 6'3", 241, initially a Mike linebacker at Maryland, then kicked to an outside backer spot in his time at Michigan. This year, landing at an edge spot along that defensive line. I think you'll continue to see that development as far as his sack production, pressure rate moving down. But even at that size, I mean, he plays like a Tasmanian devil, a lot of brute strength, hot-motored, 82 pressures, 11 sacks in his time playing that outside linebacker rushing role. So that is there. It's just a matter of kind of meeting that production. If you are to project him as a true edge, really twitched up, explosive, kind of guy that can go run the hoop in Indianapolis really well. And just closes on tackles, can handle the edge in terms of run defense. And in total, I mean, 35-plus starts worth of experience and shown that versatility, that his athleticism has really outgrown him at a Mike, then go into the outside backer spot, then go into an edge spot. You mentioned range. I like him as a late 3rd rounder. I think there's a team that'll see that specific need for him. If he gets into day 3, doesn't last very long. Barham is one. You could look at a team like the Bucks, like you had mentioned previously with Kelly. My Falcons kind of have that archetype of linebacker that starts playing down, rushing the passer, and Jalen Walker. So he doesn't really apply as much to us.
Right.
But you mentioning your Commanders as well. No, some team's going to like it, and he's one of the more fun watches to me. There's been a little bit of a surge. It feels like some in media are catching on to him a little bit more, but some of that is just catching up to some of the tape that is different in the fact that he's playing a true edge role this year. So would like to see him finish out strong pre-draft, and I imagine he goes somewhere late 3rd round.
Yeah, I think because I'll keep saying I gotta catching up to because there's a lot of draft selections. I think it's also getting interesting this draft because the past few drafts you're like, all right, there's roughly 30 first-round guys. There's 25 first-round guys. There's a lot of blue-chip prospects. You look at this year's class, you're like, I count 15 first-round grades, 17 first-round grades if I can find them. Like, it's a great draft. I don't know if it's going to be a fantastic first round talent draft. Like I had Dante at Gridiron Apex a few months ago, and he was saying Omar Cooper Jr. could be a very late first round pick. We said that in late December. February, there were a lot of rumors saying, well, could Omar? I'm thinking, well, we said this 2 months ago. So like the media is catching up a little bit. Barham is now part of that conversation. And I think part of that is because the first round draft class, once you get past probably the Bucks at 15, and let's say they take Sonny Styles right there, and that's as far as he goes. After 16, you're thinking, all right, well, who's the best player after Styles? Well, all the best players already gone top 15. There's no like top 40 first round picks board because I've gone through them. I'm thinking 17 really is pushing it, depending on the how much you value some of these guys.
No, I think you've got it right as far as most people probably have a half of a round worth of first round grades.
Yeah, it's a very like I think I could go on a rant about this, and I'll make my underrated prospects quick, so that way I don't have to be on for 2 hours because I draft prospects for 2 hours. I yap a lot. I gotta stop doing that. But doing my draft, my underrated list, and I took underrated in terms of between the media, between different draft boards, and in terms of production, meaning teams are going to look at their production, going to look at their size and go, something's not going to match. So that was my thinking process. That's why like the first half of your names, I'm thinking I've heard inklings, the back half of your draft or your board. I was like, oh, I know some of these guys. Tyron Montgomery and Scott. I've been high on Skylar Bell for a few months. Tyron, it took me a couple of weeks to get into, but he had a good offseason. Skylar Bell, one of the better combines the past couple of years. I think he was in the top 10 this year of RAS scores as well. I was high on him. Good size, great speed, good hands. Yes, he played at UConn, so they're going to give him that small school syndrome of, well, he may be a good receiver, but he played at a small school, so he's going to fall type of thing. So in terms of like receivers wise, that's what I'm thinking between some of the more underrated is Montgomery and Skylar Bell, simply because production, they're not going to match the production with the value in terms of that plus the small schools. That's why I've got those two as my kind of bigger offensive names on this list.
Yeah, quick hitting those two. Tyron Montgomery got as much flair from the Senior Bowl as anybody. You're talking about a former LSU basketball walk-on. Didn't start playing receiver until 2 years ago. He started watching YouTube videos to learn routes. Interviewed him as well at the Senior Bowl. Really friendly guy. We were laughing about, he's originally from Columbus, Georgia, found his way to that John Carroll program. That's a projection play. But for some teams looking for a receiver 3 that wants to develop and see what they can get, love that one. Skylar Bell is one, particularly before the Jahan Dotson edition, when we were looking at moving on from Darnell Mooney, I really had circled for the Falcons. That body type, around 5'11", 6 foot, 185 pounds. His production this year at UConn was as good as anybody in the country. Top 3 in every major receiving category. I mean, it's a 1,200-yard receiver, 100-plus receptions. Nuanced route runner, just a clean player. Maybe not the prettiest, flashiest player, but for a team such as ourselves, that it was just like, man, we need somebody that's productive and is going to be ready day one. No, somebody's going to take Bell and really like and get a lot of production, and thought he tested as well as he could have, like you mentioned.
For sure. Yeah, and again, I when I had Dante on with receivers, that was the whole thing. Is like, we love him as a prospect, love him as a player, love him as a person. But then when some teams go down their boards and they say UConn, they're going, oh, smaller school, we're not going to worry about that part. So I wonder where, like, I would take him in the 3rd round simply because value, position, production.
Had him in the 3rd to my Falcons when I was considering that. Yeah,
perfect. But I also know some teams are going to look at him, and I have Bryce Lance in my honorable mentions. They're going North Dakota State and UConn. Well, if it's not a big 4, we're moving you down a little bit. So if he falls, it's gonna hurt me. But I also, it's gonna be the NFL. Some guys are just gonna fall. Unfortunately, I fear Skylar Bell is going to be in that party of smaller school. You're gonna fall. Going to running backs and out of the backfield, I got Kalen Black, Indiana running back, who had a very good year, but both of their running backs had a good year. And I think Kalen may be the second one out of those two taken later on in the draft. Probably going to be a day 3 pick. I don't know if he falls into day 2, and if he does, good for him. If not, it's going to be kind of probably a 5th or later kind of a situation for him. And honestly, I would take him in later drafts. He's got more of a bigger body build. He's around 6'1" or about 6 foot, about that 215 mark, but 1,000 and I think 11 touchdowns if I remember correctly. So I enjoy him. And then Eli Heidenreich from my Wrestling fans. No, not that Heidenreich, this Heidenreich. I mean, you want to talk about everything on the offense besides O-line and quarterback. You want to talk about a new age Taysom Hill. Fullback, tight end, wide receiver. Just use him anywhere on the field like just a weapon in every sense of the word. And yes, it's Navy, and people hate me because I like drafting some of the Navy kids. Well, Navy doesn't put out Pro Bowlers. You can draft a really good prospect. He doesn't have to be a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro right out of the gate. Some guys, look at Matthew Slater, not the most awarded guy, but in terms of where he needs to play and how he plays, you're not going to go, oh yeah, that's Matthew Slater. I gotta remember about him. I think Heidenreich could be someone they take probably 5th to 6th, 6th to 7th, and you need him at your 4th receiver. Cool. You need him at your 3rd running back. Great. You need him to block on a run play. No problem. I really enjoy me some Eli Heidenreich, and I got him around January when I started doing some film on him.
Kalen Black is one of the main guys I have circled for my Falcons day 3 if they don't ultimately get a running back 2 to replace Algier here in the next wave of free agency. Just, he's shown you his ability in a committee behind Roman Hemby. And I say behind, it really is more cohesive. I mean, those guys were both along the lines of 1,000-yard running backs. Saw him as well at the Senior Bowl. Just kind of got that bowling ball build and durability to him. I mean, to come off that national championship and then thrust himself into the Senior Bowl and be competing, you didn't see that from many from either of those two programs, and understandably so. But his willingness to compete there, the production, I think he'd be an incredible compliment at the price to a Bijan Robinson carrying the majority of the load. Love that mention on Black you have there. And too many people are kind of writing that off, viewing Hemby as the one there. It's like, well, yeah, because both day 3 caliber running backs just happen to be on the same team. Eli Heidenreich, completely agree with your point as far as a team that needs a receiver 4, needs somebody to take some running back 3 snaps. I think more of his money making is going to come as a receiver in the league. I really do. And coming out of that Navy program, it's like, look, you're only going to hear good things. He's going to be all business. Incredible opportunity for him. He's someone's going to be really high on this guy for the reasons you just said. The 53-man value. You want somebody that can play some receiver. You want somebody that can play some running back, somebody that can take some H-back snaps, somebody that can go play some special teams and not be a headache while having done it.
Exactly.
No, those are two great mentions. To pair those with the 2 running back mentions I had, that's a testament to this class. Though there might not be as much top-end talent at that position, there's so much good depth, particularly if you're a team, such as myself, obviously, with Bijan, that's got a 1, you need a 2 or you need a 3. And that's where you make the difference between yourself and other teams in this league for it to be a game of inches.
I agree. Going more towards defense, because I think this is a much better defense. I think last year was a better offensive draft. This year's going to be, I think, a better defensive draft overall. So that's why I've got 60 defensive guys and then 2 in my honorable mentions. Jaden Kennedy, corner out of Oregon, came in later in my process, but not too late. Some of these other guys were looked at his stats, looked at some of his tape, looked at some of the positions he played. I liked him. I like him kind of in that round 5, that 147, maybe 186 benchmark. I think if you need him, we've got Amos and Sainra still, and Amos I think is going to be our 1 coverage guy, but I needed someone at my 2 or 3 that can do coverage, can kind of play in the little middle, but I'm not going to have to worry about him getting fried the entire game. I think Kennedy is a good start, and you're not going to have to worry about him starting immediately, because if you've got a team that has your solid 3s, he's going to be a great 4, and he'll work his way onto the roster. And then someone I've had my guy on from December, and I have not shied away from it. Safety Jalen Husky out of Maryland. I mean, what's not to love? Good size, good speed, 4 interceptions on the year. I am shocked if he has, I just haven't done as much depth research. Someone isn't going to try him at corner because I think he's got intangibles that could, but I mean, keep him at safety. It's going to be so good. Like, I want him to pair him up with Nick Cross and Will Harris, and I've got nothing to worry about in my secondary.
Starting with Kennedy, there is an argument in terms of not even mentioning tape, not even mentioning testing, but just statistical profile. He's as strong as anybody in this corner class. I mean, fewest yards allowed per reception as far as this draft class. He's number 1 at 6.1 yards. Second place is all the way down to 8 yards. He's dominatingly got that. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a jaw dropper. Lowest passer rating when targeted, comes in at 5th, 51.9% as far as guys available. And then lastly, another category that he's number 1, fewest yards allowed per snap and coverage at 0.36, with names like Pons, Igbenos, and Takario Davis coming behind him. So digging deeper into that, I think it's versatility for a team that maybe does have boundary corner and nickel corner needs. Mention the Cowboys as an example. I think that's one that they just need competent bodies. They need durability. They need somebody that is statistically proven productivity on a defense that isn't barren. I really like him there. That is a great mention on Kennedy. He'll get some more steam here down the stretch as people get deeper and deeper in these last couple of weeks. Husky is one that I got put on. You mentioned some of the work I do with draft professors, Jim Wickens, who's the boss man over there. Like, kind of like how I said how Adam Randall might be like my guy for this draft. Husky's his guy for this draft. You mentioned the corner mention. I totally get it. I would just say I think some of that at safety is just physicality. This is someone that loves violence, seeks violence, and at that size profile does have the agility that you don't always see seeking contact as much with those guys. Husky's one we could look up, gets taken day 3, and in a couple of years, we're like, oh, yeah, this guy started in the league for a couple of years. And similar to Kennedy, a secondary that maybe has multiple needs, gets a little banged up and has to do a little shifting. The versatility between those two could be a theme of your mentions right there on your underrated list.
Yeah, I've a lot of these guys I've brought up in mock drafts and otherwise, and I'm just like, look, I'm not hearing a lot about them. I'm going to talk about them because I'm loving them. And that goes well with my 2D tackles. Look, I have been taking this man in about 90% of my mock drafts. He is working out with Aaron Donald. He was AC All Defense, AC All Pro, like all the awards, all of the accolades. And you want to talk about an undersized lineman who I made the joke when I had Metro Sports on. You try him at fullback, and it would be phenomenal to look at. That's Landon Robinson at Navy. I mean, small, stout, strong, more of your pass rush D tackle than your run defense D tackle. But even in the run game, I'm not going to worry about it as much. I mean, like, we joked about him playing fullback, like you use him like a Patrick Ricard or a Kyle Juszczyk, but now I want to see him catch a football, and it would be phenomenal to play and watch. And then Caleb Proctor out of the Southeastern Louisiana had a really good offseason, a good Senior Bowl, 6'3", 280. Again, another pass rush D tackle with 9 sacks on the season. I mean, for a smaller school, they still play this season. LA Tech, they played in LSU, and then that's pretty much it. They played in Incarnate Ward. But, I mean, if you want someone who you can develop, let him sit behind a year, use him on some special teams abilities. But if you're going to use, let's say, a 5-man front for somebody and you need someone to kind of get some pressure, I like Proctor and I like Robinson for both of those roles. Those are kind of my underrated / D tackles. Give me to DC because we need D line help.
You mentioned Robinson is at that fullback role. It's like, yeah, you better have an ambulance close by with him coming downhill. At 5'11" and a quarter, 293, does kind of have that Aaron Donald build. You see the two of them working out together, standing right next to each other, and coming out of that Navy program. I mean, he tested as a 94th percentile athlete at his pro day. This was the biggest combine snub to me in terms of looking at somebody that would have just blown it up. I mean, running a 4.87 40, having a 1.65 10-yard split, a 7.32 cone. That's disturbing kind of numbers. And that doesn't even really, that's not the scariest put goosebumps on you that you're going to get with them. I mean, this is the ultimate weight room demon. He has the ultimate weight room build. I mean, this guy's got a 700-pound squat, 465-pound bench max, 33-inch vert, and has been clocked at 20 plus miles an hour. I mean, that is violence we see in this era of the NFL for people to say, oh, it's getting softer. It's like, yeah, well, a little bit of that is, go back to your dad's days in the 80s or so and before, where it was like, oh, yeah, this guy's a 280-pound offensive tackle. It's like force mass acceleration. Guys aren't supposed to be this big and this fast and this explosive and this compact and this dense. As somebody like Robinson, you look at some of these teams, you talk about him at that 5'11 and a quarter, his ability to leverage, talk about like an old Bengals legend in Geno Atkins, that shorter, stout defensive tackle that just gets up under the interior's pads and is going to forklift you. I am really, really, really pulling for him to get a good spot. And as far as Caleb Proctor, you could parallel him to what I said about Kennedy, as far as just purely statistically, might be the best in the group. I know one
He's
team
up there for sure.
I really liked pegging him in is the Broncos, running that 3-4. They just had John Franklin Myers in that edge position in that 280 range leave town with all the pass rush upside headed to the Titans. You put Proctor in there and cut him loose with all that talent around him, opposite of a Zach Allen. I'll tell you, he's not getting out of day two. He's tested well enough. I think he's a third rounder, man. I really do. Someone's going to have the vision. He's going to fit somebody's threshold as far as that size as a 3-4 edge. Such a great mention on your end.
You said, I didn't even think about him rising in boards that fast. I'm thinking if you get him in the fourth, that's a steal nowadays. But you're thinking third.
Well, I think fourth is possible. That's more of good value, went where he should have. Yeah. I think third can be where somebody, what I said earlier in the episode of, we've got a guy we like. We don't care if we're going a hair early on, and we've got the vision. Yeah. We're not getting cute. We're not going to say, oh, well, we could take him here, but we got another pick in the fourth and 20 picks, and we're going to screw around and let someone take him 3 picks before us. No, they'll pull the trigger, particularly a team. I use the Broncos as an example.
Yeah.
Their winning window's open. They've got picks. They've got money. They've got management. They've got ownership. They've got Sean Payton. They've got a quarterback that they'll say, screw it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's a good point. Who was like pick 95? Because Broncos would be fun. You mentioned 3-4. I wonder how you would do in a 4-3 next, like Chris Jones and KC.
I mean, he could do both. His body archetype does fit both. I just think when you look at a lot of these teams running base 3-4 in what is becoming more and more of a nickel-based NFL defensively, him hitting that 280 threshold with the amount of juice he has to really be a difference maker rushing the passer versus a stalwart, I could see a team that runs more of that defense decide to pay the little more price to go get him.
That's fair. One edge that actually, shout out to Nick, who's one of my other co-hosts. He put me on to this guy, and I've enjoyed his tape. I've enjoyed the stats. I've enjoyed the mock drafts with him. It's Nadeem Tucker out of Western Michigan. I mean, tied with David Bailey on the amount of sacks this season in the country. Good size, good speed. You want to talk about someone who a team might pay a little bit more for? I think if done correctly, he could be a very, very early day 3 to that very, very late day 2, kind of that Caleb Proctor role of he's got the intangibles. A team's going to like him. He's young enough that he can develop, but you're not going to immediately make him your 1. But if he's your 2 or 3, you've got plenty of time. And honestly, if you have to start him right away, I'm not going to worry all too much. Yes, this was his one big year at Western Michigan, but I'm still enjoying him. I don't know if he's going to make it past like 125. If he does, I'm going to be a little bit like, what happened here?
I think Tucker, the ding on his profile is just going to be he's older. He's around that 25 range, and that you hear the conversation more along the lines of like a first round prospect in Miami's Akeem Messidor in that age range.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it for both of them as far as they're probably circled more as far as what their camp anticipates teams being interested, teams in winning windows, teams like the Patriots, teams like the Broncos, teams like the Seahawks that are okay saying, yeah, if we get 5-6 years out of this guy playing at starting level production, we don't care if we look up and he doesn't get to all the way through a second contract or doesn't get to a third contract. We got our due out of him, and we need it now. We don't need a lot of we don't need a lot of projection. We don't need maybe in 2-3 years. Now in 2-3 years, he's going to be looking at wrapping up his 20s. We want somebody now. But I mean, statistically, kind of like we said with some of the other guys on your list, he's as good in this class, just like the next name you're going to have right here, your last name on your list coming up. For teams that want the production over the potential has been coined a little popularly lately with Kurt Signetti. I think for those kind of teams, Tucker can be a gem.
And then, the last name on my list, Keyshawn James Newby out of New Mexico. Again, another name that came very, very late. I think can go day 3, and a team's going to join him 2 back-to-back seasons, 10 sacks, and then 2023 had 55 hurries this past season, 9 QB hits, just a 24% pass rush win rate. And he played against teams Michigan, UCLA, San Jose State, Boise State, Air Force, San Diego State, Minnesota. So it's not like a smaller school where you got to worry about has he played some competition. He played competition early to start the year and to finish the year. And outside the tackle is going to be his bread and butter. And again, you're talking about size, 6'2", 244. I wonder if you can get to that 250 mark, pack on some muscle, and get there. If you're a team probably in the 5 to 7, maybe even 6 to 7 range, you want someone deep on your charts who you can kind of develop a little bit, but you don't have to worry about got to teach them all the tools in the bag. I like KJN.
He's such a cool path to the draft. A 0-star recruit, goes to Montana Tech, transfers to Idaho, transfers to New Mexico State, 35-plus starts to then wrap it all up this season and be third in FBS and QB pressures behind those big names like Ruben Bain and David Bailey. I mean, he's the next one. It's kind of the theme we said with Tucker, the theme we said with Proctor, the theme we said with the 2 DBs. Really kind of the overall motto of your underrated list is just the statistical production for guys that can translate seamlessly to the league. James Newby is one of those that's going to be stowed away to late day 3 for some team that needs the production now rotationally while simultaneously developing him some, for maybe his ceiling a little later down the road. Explosive first step. And agree with your mention on him being outside the tackle, but even when he's got to, and it's even more admirable at his size, he can attack some interior gaps too. I mean, he is a pound for pound strong player with all that explosiveness and production. Very, very well done list on your end.
Thank you, sir. And then obviously I had 4 honorable mentions just because I initially started this list with my BIB folks. And I had 20 on this list, and I was like, I got to pare this down a little bit. So I got Traden Stukes, quarter out of Arizona. I've been talking hype on this man pre-combine, post-combine. It's been a problem. Same thing with Lance. Glovin was on my list, and then ironically enough, Caden Curry, the Ohio State edge rusher, 11 sacks on the season, not getting as much love as I thought he was going to get, especially coming out of Ohio State. Again, he might be a team where teams going to need him now for his production. Buffalo, New England, KC, the Chargers. Like, there's going to be a couple of teams in that ready to win now territory that Tucker, Newby, Caden are probably going to be like, hey, we'll pay a little more for a little bit older guy, but we're going to need you here and now. So that's I had to throw those guys on the list, but I think your list is actually better than mine.
And I could quick hit I could quick hit those wrapping it up too. You know, Traden Stukes, similar to what we just said about James Newby, his path here, you know, 0-star recruit.
Yeah.
Went from walk-on to being such a versatile DB in an Arizona program that's pumping them out, man. I mean, even when you include the transfers, Ephesians Prysock and Takario Davis at Washington come from that Arizona program. Genesis Smith is going to be in here as well. Dalton Johnson, as far as the two safeties he played with, kind of cover more of that nickel spot. Tested very well, ran 4.4. Dad played at Pacific University in arena football, good pedigree, best football ahead of him as you've seen him gradually developing. Bryce Lance, as far as testing, is almost identical prospectively to a Christian Watson with the Packers coming out of that same North Dakota State program. Ran a 4.34 for a team that wants the vertical threat and wants some height on someone. He's going to be a move. We've already talked about Golban. And, you know, as far as Curry, everything you said, I think the only thing that maybe is just having more of your average consumer of draft content or somebody in the media that's slower catching on to that is just good size profile. I think his athletic ceiling might not be quite as high, but what did we say about the theme of your list? The production immediately. You know, it's like if that was your last name on here, that was really an ultimate testament to it. You know, maybe not as just gaudy as some names like James Newby and Tucker Proctor, et cetera. Kennedy might have taken the cake of all of them. But talking about that defensive line, but that's a testament to your list, like I said.
Hey, I will take it. I try. I look at your list. I'm like, man, I'm not feeling as good on my list. There are names I don't even recognize like that. So I got work to do. I will take the praise on my list. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Clint, I thank you for coming on, staying over an hour, almost an hour and 20 minutes on this thing. I had a fantastic time talking all these prospects because there are a lot of good prospects in this draft. And it's going to be, like we said, it's going to be a very interesting draft on teams are going to want him now. Teams are going to be like, we can get him later. It's going to be some steals. We are so far away from the draft. We're like 40 something days and I need it tomorrow.
Nah, it'll get here. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you. Guys, before you get out of here, don't forget that subscribe button on your way out, whether it's Ball and Burgundy podcast or NFL Draft Dome. Go support Clint. He's doing fantastic work over on his side of things. And then tune into Draft Professor. They're going to do their giant mock draft here coming soon. I was supposed to be the Commanders representative. My timing is going to work out, but I'm still going to help out as well as I can. So y'all give Clint, Draft Professor, all those fellas over there some love. All those links down in the description. And while you're at it, like this video and comment down below. Who is your favorite top underrated prospect? Is there a name that we didn't have on our list? Is it both of our lists? Let us know in the comments who your top prospect who's underrated in the comments. So signing out, Jon, Clint, thank you for coming on, my friend. I will see y'all next time. We out. Offseason continues.